Welcome to B2B Sales Trends, the podcast dedicated to sales leaders in the B2B space, where we share conversations about innovative and successful sales transformations to keep you up to date on the latest trends. This podcast is brought to you by Global Performance Group.
Welcome here to another fabulous episode of the B2B Sales Trends podcast, my lovely people. The show that brings you hacks, tips, thought leadership to the topic of B2B selling. My name is Harry Kendlbacher, and today's episode, I have a special guest with me, which I'm extremely excited to have for this recording. Today, Lisa Gudding, the President of Strategic Growth for Ipsos, is joining us. Welcome to the B2B Sales Trends podcast, Lisa.
No, thank you, Harry. It's an honor to be here. When I reviewed those that you've interviewed in the past, I was really proud to have been invited to be among that esteemed group.
Absolutely. You topped the whole group, if I may just say that. For the sake of a quick introduction, Lisa, tell us a little bit about yourself, your role, and the kind of work your team focuses on.
Oh, sure. Well, first, let me just comment briefly on Ipsos. Not everyone, perhaps, that's listening is familiar with Ipsos as a company. In our sector, we're a very large market research and consulting firm, multinational, actually based in Paris, celebrating our 50th anniversary right now. And amongst the 94 or so countries in which we play, the United States, obviously, it's a big market, the most important market in terms of size. And I focus in the U.S. on strategic growth, as you mentioned when you introduced me. So on my team, I have two groups of people. One is what we call the strategic growth team. They're more business developers. And the other are client officers. They're more farmers. For today, I'll probably focus more on talking about the strategic growth team. I think our conversation is most relevant to them.
And in the lead up to this, we had a pre-call and we talked quite a bit about the idea, how do we shift from service to selling? And a lot of companies are really evolving from that service mindset to a more commercial, a more sales-driven mindset. What does it take to make that shift successful, especially without making teams feel like they're being pushed into something they're not? What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, that's a very pertinent question because here at Ipsos, for our first decades, we grew primarily because we developed great products and had great service. And a commercial mindset, I think even our founder would agree, was not how we described ourselves. In fact, we didn't use the word sales. We talked about being a great research and insights company. We thought of sales, I think, almost as a dirty word, which is rather common. But if you asked anyone, would you like us to grow the business? Would you like us to start engaging with new buying points, et cetera? Of course, the answer was yes. And so everyone wanted us to sell. We just didn't like the word. So part of it is just culturally getting leadership to understand that selling is not a bad thing. Selling is a great thing if it's done with the proper purpose and with authenticity. So I can speak most for us, it was a matter of starting to show success with what really is sales. And it's not going to happen overnight. Culturally, we started actually incorporating sales approaches. People who had focused, myself included, I was a hire that had focused on selling my entire career. I came in, though not articulating myself as that, but showing success gives you support to build a team. In terms of getting people who have not had commercial focus to start seeing things that way, that's, again, going to start with leadership, motivating the team, celebrating successes, et cetera. But in the end, not everyone is wired to really be commercially minded first. So I think you need to accept that and think about the right role for the right people and maybe hire a little bit differently as part of that evolution as it moves forward.
That's an interesting lead into what was going to be my next question, actually. So thank you for the bridge here. Hiring for these new type of sales mindset and skill set, really, because you require both. And in an enterprise sale, trust can be built or lost very, very quickly in a matter of a few minutes, in actual fact, or even seconds. What qualities do you look for when you build a team that needs to, form strong, credible relationships, hopefully quickly even? What do you look for in that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first I'll say, I think I've built the best team in our industry. I couldn't be more proud of each and every one of them. They're truly an elite team, I think, within our industry. And part of that is separate from whatever their resume might say or the success they articulate having achieved in the past. Part of that, for me is when I meet them, within the first minutes, do I trust them? Do I have that sense of trust? Am I interested in them? Do I feel that they are authentically connecting with me? And do I want the conversation to continue? Because if in those first minutes I'm bored, I feel uncomfortable with the connection between the two of us, that means that clients and prospects are probably going to feel that way with that person too. And you're right. It's just minutes that you have to make that connection or not. And people can do it in different ways, but there's got to be that ability to connect with someone really quickly and authentically. And someone on my team talks about her adage of 2 beers and a puppy. Would you trust that person to care for your puppy? Do you want to have not just 1 beer with them, but a second beer? Because if the answer is no, they may have a role within our company, but it's probably not going to be on the front lines selling. They have to have that special something and charisma. And then, of course, beyond that, you have to do all of the, checking on whether they have the skill set, checking references. There have been people who have had, what felt like the right mix up front, but then upon checking references, maybe they weren't quite right for other reasons. I think too, they have to fit into the team culturally, have that spirit of collaboration, et cetera. Because if you get a person, no matter how skilled they are, that is poison to your team culture, that's really bad for everyone. And so there's a special mix of person that's going to really be at the top. And I think that you can break it down into elements, and part of it can be trained, and part of it is, I think, just who they are and how self-motivated they are and how truly curious and interested in others they are.
It's interesting, all the things that you've described in the sense of the typical sort of client-facing people. It really requires a mindset and a skill set change, right? A lot of the times, and of course, change is never easy. Change is always uncomfortable. And a lot of the times we need to motivate our people to take that step, right? And commission and comp is one way of doing it. But how do you deal with teams that don't work on commission in this case? How do you motivate them? They still need to perform. What are some of those most effective ways, in your opinion, to keep salespeople motivated and focused on results while having to make that big shift that you were talking about?
Right. I mean, again, part of it is proper hiring. But beyond that, I think especially someone that has been selling for a while, selling is a hard job. And many companies don't really know how to lead sellers. So they think it'll be motivating to give people stretch goals. Every year they make it harder and harder when someone has been working hard already. For me, for example, one key is to, provide them with safety, because often selling is not a safe role. So they need to know that their manager has their back. They need to have a goal that is achievable. If you come onto my team and you sell $5 million this year and your goal was $4 million, you feel like a rock star. You feel more motivated than ever. If you sold $5 million and your goal was $6 million, you feel like you worked really hard and you still couldn't meet expectations. And is this even the company for you? Either way, you sold $5 million. But in one case, we made you feel great and motivated. And in the other, we made you feel not so great. And I have proven with my team that once a really commercially minded seller hits their goal, they feel great. They don't take their foot off the gas. They, in fact, press it down harder because they feel that positive momentum. And so I think part of it is about making them feel safe. And then beyond that, I think I mentioned this to my team in our team meeting yesterday, and we talked about it a bit. And someone noted that it has varied throughout their career, sort of on the stage they are in their career. Some people, for everyone on the team, I feel part of my role as a manager is to help them build their brand. And a big part of that is recognition. And it has to be not a process with a, electronic star that comes from the CEO, but an actual thoughtful consideration of, sharing what they've achieved, and then from leadership and from the broader industry getting recognition can really make a difference. For some people, they're more driven by something that's public. Others might be more driven by something that's more private. No one ever turns down money, but like you said, it's got to go beyond that. If you really want to keep them there, you have to authentically care and celebrate and help them move their career forward with various ways of recognizing people. One person noted that, being invited to teach others was a type of recognition that he really valued. Another person said it's really about, having the most senior leadership at our company thoughtfully think about and recognize what they've done. Another person said it's not just about that particular win, for example, but it's about recognition of the broader journey they've made. And so a lot of it just boils down to thoughtfulness and leadership that values and is authentically ready to recognize and care about those achievements.
Love it. It feels like you've created a very, very nice, authentic culture around that recognition. That's very cool. Very cool. You don't see that very often, and we're talking to a lot of companies, a lot of leaders such as yourself, and that sounds really cool what you did. Very good.
Well, I think
Very
that
good.
too. I mean, I would say most, if not all, of the people on my team, frankly, took financial cuts to come to the team. And going from a commission structure to a non-commission structure, and we try to give them bases that they feel really good about. And then the bonuses are never as strong as anyone would like to see. But part of it is the safety and the culture of coming to Ipsos. Part of it is, again, making sure that they have goals that are achievable, making sure that they are recognized when they go beyond that, and helping try to remove hurdles that they might face by having their back, I think makes a big difference in terms of just enjoying your life at work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. In our pre-call, we talked a little bit, which I thought was interesting when you mentioned that the whole importance of tailoring your message, and I'm shifting gears here a little bit to the right buyer, and what really helps, and what sellers have to do is they have to really read the room effectively and tailor their approach depending on whether a client wants to innovate or stick with something they tried and tested and so forth. How do you help your sellers tailor that message to that specific buyer?
Right. Well, I think that, first of all, we're so fortunate in that we have technologies and tools that can help us do the research up front. You got to do the research up front. And what you're striving to do, I think, is you have to have the skill of active listening. I remember early in my selling career, I thought I had to fill in every pause in the conversation with content. It takes a little bit of maturity as a seller to listen more than you talk. It seems obvious, but it's something that you learn early on. I think that what you're really striving to do is get yourself on their side of the table. So really understanding where they're coming from, articulating to them, the options that and the benefits and drawbacks of each up front, helping them understand, one of the things that Ipsos leadership has been talking about lately that I really admire is this notion of boldness and helping our clients be bold too. We know from Gartner data that there's, roughly 11 decision makers associated with every B2B buying decision. And so setting up the key contact that we have for success is really the mindset that you have to have, and helping them. It's less about trying to sell as much as possible in this particular one opportunity. It's more about helping them be successful in this instance so that we'll have a very long-term relationship with them. And sometimes that means even not doing what at the moment might result in the largest sale for Ipsos, but that is going to result in the largest positive impact on the future relationship.
Right. So how do you really understand the decision-making process? How do you really engage with each one of those 11 plus stakeholders in your decision-making process? How do you get access to them in the first place? How do you develop these needs in each one of them? And how do you engage them? I like your term, with boldness, and challenge them a bit in their thinking too. Um, that's theory. That's how that works ideally. It's challenging for salespeople to do that because they tend to be gravitating to the people they like and they get on with and the topic they can talk about. And then suddenly a procurement person comes in, or financial buyer or somebody else, and you think, oh no, that's really not my cup of tea here to talk to this individual about this topic. They feel out of depth. They find that challenging, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that our direct contact and the buying team often also feels that pressure internally. And so again, the better we're able to get on their side of the table and talk through with them to understand even who those other 10 people are is not something that's easy necessarily. And so to gain the trust of the buyer when you can, to say, okay, I'm assuming that finance will have a need here. How do we address what their need might be here? What about the CMO? Are they involved in this decision? If so, what are the drivers for them? I noticed on your annual report that your CEO articulated X, Y, and Z. Is that something that's relevant enough that if we fold it in, talking about we with your client, your prospect, rather than you, I think can carry you there. Your client and prospect needs to be willing to have a conversation with you. That's step one, being able to break through that. I'm a supplier. And again, back to the notion of being bold, unless you're in a commodity selling situation, if you just replied to the RFP, you've made yourself a commodity. So you need to be able to go beyond that. And the only way to do that is really to understand the business, understand their needs, and then help them understand the value of something probably beyond what they initially asked for.
It's interesting. We talk a lot about discovery and understanding our customers' business and understand what they, what they're about and what their issues are and so forth. I always like to take that a little bit further even. And instead of just thinking about asking in my discovery phase and a number of questions to understand their need, it's really up to salespeople to what I call generate new needs in the mind of the buyer, generate needs that they haven't considered before, generate needs that they haven't appreciated before, can impact their business. Is that something that resonates with you?
Exactly what I was trying to communicate when I said get on their side of the table. So the way that you might present that, for example, would be to say something as simple as, if I were in your shoes, one of the things I really pay attention to was the quality of the sample, because the most affordable choice is often a risky choice unless you're able to lift up the hood. And I would ask people in the proposal to make sure that they articulate that element, so you're kind of removing yourself from looking at them face to face to being on their side of the table, looking at all of the others that might be presenting a proposal to, and articulating to them things beyond what they perhaps asked for, articulating the importance and why that is. And of course, you're infusing things that are your strengths because you believe in them, hopefully, and what your company is bringing forward. So I completely agree with you there.
Yeah, nice. And of course, we have a diversity in decision makers in our sales process now in terms of roles, personas, and so forth, right? But I also know you're working with global clients. That means really you have to, sort of navigate different styles of communication and expectations. What helped you, or how do you help your team, I guess, approach these cultural nuances in a thoughtful and effective way?
Right. So my team does a lot of multi-country selling. More
Yeah.
often, the direct buyer for my team is based in the US, which is
Mm.
helpful. But that said, when it's not always the case, and certainly even in engaging with our colleagues across the globe, you know, there's that same sort of set of understanding your client to understanding it just is extended now into a realm of cultural. So doing the research, understanding the formality or otherwise of expectations associated with that culture, communication, articulating to them, this is what we would typically provide. Does this fit with what you need here? Being respectful, but a lot of it just when you're unclear of something, even beyond the research that you've done, is about communicating and articulating various options and letting people know whether or not that's something that will fit with their particular need. And I think that you can learn the hard way, especially when you get to the negotiation phase. I've learned the hard way with some negotiators from other countries that, that the style that I'm used to isn't going to work at all in those arenas. So for us, we're lucky enough that we have colleagues in most countries around the world that would want to buy research. So I can reach out to someone in Israel. I can reach out to someone in Japan, and I have a colleague there that can give me tips on that beyond the research I might be able to do on my own.
Nice. Certainly negotiating cross-cultural topics and situations is a challenge, but it's interesting. Hey, the last question I always ask on every podcast is the one that describes, in your opinion, the top 3 qualities of elite salespeople. In other words, considering this tough buying environment that we're in right now, what do you think are the top 3 skills and behaviors that salespeople need to be at an elite level?
Mm-hmm. I guess the first I would say is the interest and ability to leverage technology, because there's tools out there that can make you so much better, so much more quickly. And, the interest in leveraging what's available to you and learning how to make it help you be more effective and help you be more efficient would be number 1. Number 2, and these aren't necessarily in any particular order. Number 2 is that foundational ability to connect with someone, authentically build trust, to have that sense of curiosity and interest in others that doesn't feel like a process, that feels like who you are, will make all the difference. And then I would say third, a nature of generosity and collaboration, because in the end, selling is about helping people, right? You're going to be most successful if really your goal is to help the buyer. That's going to build that long-term relationship. And that's something we can build as a company and as managers somewhat, but that also has to be something that you absorb as part of your nature as a self. How can I help this person? That mindset will make all the difference.
So somebody who leverages technology, somebody who can build trust immediately and build it authentically, and somebody who's generous and collaborates effectively and wants their clients to succeed. Fabulous. I think that's a wonderful close. Lisa, thank you so much for your time. I know our listeners very much appreciate your insights and your thought leadership. Thank you for taking the time. My lovely people, 2 calls to action. Go to the b2bsalestrends.com site to share this or other episodes with people who you think this would help, as well as go to the B2B Sales Trends podcast YouTube channel, subscribe and like it. We appreciate it. And until the next episode, look after yourself, look after your loved ones, and of course, your B2B customers. Bye-bye.